Welcome everyone to the Shanks Weekly. We have an amazing guest this week, Dr. Mark Haverkorn, who is a very interesting doctor because he is doing interesting things online, but he also is very active in free market medicine, and he is very multifaceted. So we have him here, Dr. Mark Haverkorn. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm glad to be here. It's good to see you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. We met through the Free Market Medical Association here in San Antonio. You're actually one of the founding members. And
yes.
I do think we should take some time to talk about the FMMA. But before we do that, I always like to ask our guests about their childhood and how they got to become a doctor. I find it always fascinating.
He was born a doctor.
He was born?
Yes. The line of doctors. He came out of the room.
I was going to say, we've already joked about that. Well, my dad was an oral surgeon, and so I just followed in his footsteps. I had other ideas when I was younger. I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I thought about being a cardiothoracic surgeon, but in the end, oral surgery won out. And the reason was I was trying to decide in college if I would go to dental school or medical school. And then my dad said, well, hey, a lot of oral surgeons these days go to both. And so you could go to both. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. I didn't really think about how much school that meant, but that's what I ended up doing. That kind of settled it. And then when I got done with oral surgery, I realized there is no way I would go back and do a residency in something else. Because that was what I thought. Well, if I got both degrees and I want to go be an anesthesiologist or what, a nephrologist, I can. Well, yeah, you can, but no.
But one thing was clear. It was always clear for you that you wanted to be a doctor. Is that correct?
Well, like I said early on, when I had other ideas, but yes, as I got older, got into high school, got into college, and really was thinking about it. I like working with my hands. I like working for myself. I like science. So all that, works out well to be a surgeon.
And you're basically, as Andrea mentioned, born into a family of medicine, basically, right?
Yes, yeah. Like I said, my dad was an oral surgeon. My mom is a dental hygienist, and it's National Dental Hygiene Month, like we were saying. And my mother's father was a dentist down in McAllen in the Valley. So on my dad's side, he was the first doctor and the only doctor. And I should say too, my uncle, my mother's brother, is an internal medicine doctor in Oklahoma. So on my mom's side, there's more of a medical connection than on my dad's side. But yeah, it was familiar.
Was it all the table talk that we hear in the movies about this round table discussion during dinner?
No, my dad didn't talk a whole lot about work at dinner. We talked a little bit. He talked a little bit about work, but more about what's going on with us and hobbies and, just things like that. In fact, when I went to dental school, I'd only been to a dentist's office a handful of times in my life to get some sealants on my teeth because my mom was a hygienist, like I said. So she cleaned our teeth and my dad would look in our mouths and see if we had any cavities or anything like that. And so I remember being early in dental school and watching them talk about dentistry and seeing the slides on the screen. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I just didn't. I went to dental school to be an oral surgeon. I didn't know anything about dentistry.
Okay, so for lay people, let's break down.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's break down what degrees you have, how many. Because I will be very honest with you. When I met you, I could not even pronounce maxillofacial surgeon. Nor did I know what it meant. So I'm sure you get that question often. Are you a dentist? Are you more? Are you several things? So let's break that down, please.
Right, sure. So I'm trying to think where to start. But I guess, in college, I applied to dental school, went into dental school. I actually started dental school before I had my bachelor's degree, and then classes transferred back to get the bachelor's degree. So I was able to kind of get through college a little quicker that way. But so I went to dental school for 4 years, got a DDS degree. You also sometimes see people with a DMD degree. It's the same thing. Doctor of dental medicine doctor or a doctor of dental surgery, but the state board looks at them the same. The training's the same. There's really no difference. There's a little difference between MD and DO training, but in the dental world, there's really no difference in the training. So anyway, I got the dental degree, got a dental license in the state of Texas. And then I think it was, the beginning of my last year, dental school is 4 years like med school. At the beginning of my senior year in dental school, I applied for oral surgery. And I was looking at 6-year programs, or what we call combined programs, where you get the medical degree. And every program in the country is a little bit different as to how much of medical school you do, and do you do it at the beginning or the end of your training or in the middle. But I was very fortunate to get into the LSU Shreveport oral surgery residency in Shreveport, Louisiana. It's a great program. I had really great mentors there. And I did about 18 months of medical school and got a medical degree. I had to pass all the boards. Some programs will make you do more medical school to get that MD, but in Shreveport, if you could pass the tests and you did the required classes that all medical students have to do, which is basically the third year where we spend a few months on pediatrics and surgery and psychiatry and OBGYN, all those different things, a few month rotation on each one. So I did all that and then graduated from medical school in 06, so like halfway through the residency, and then spent the rest of the time on general surgery, anesthesia, oral surgery. So it's a big field. And I guess to your question about what is it exactly, so oral surgery, or I always say, and most of us say oral surgery because the maxillofacial thing, just people are like, what is that? But the official title is oral and maxillofacial surgery. So maxillofacial is just your face. And then at my program, we expanded into doing neck stuff and doing some cranial surgeries as well. Not brain surgery, but surgery on the actual skull. But anyway, oral and maxillofacial surgery is a recognized specialty of dentistry. It's a dental specialty, even though we have a medical degree. I have a medical license because I got the MD and then did a year of general surgery internship. And in Texas and a lot of states, you've got to do a 1-year internship to get your medical license. There's a few states where you have to do actually 2 years of internship to get a medical license. So it's possible to have a medical license without finishing your residency. Kind of makes things hard overall. And so I would say probably the vast majority of doctors finish a residency. Mm-hmm. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yep. So oral maxillofacial surgeon is one who does surgery how?
So it's well, actually, we used to say from the pleura to the dura. So the pleura is the lining of the lungs, the dura is the lining of the brain, and we did everything in between. There's a lot of overlap with ENT, but we don't do ear surgery. And it just kind of depends on your training. You may do different things. And I should say, too, there's oral surgeons out there who don't go to medical school, and they're still a recognized board-certified specialist. The medical school thing is an option, but it was the one that I thought was worth it. It's only 2 years more schooling to do that. But we do a lot of different types of surgery. The one that most people are familiar with is what we call dentoalveolar surgery, which is surgery on the teeth and the gums. So that's taking out your wisdom teeth, or taking out bad teeth, or putting in dental implants, or doing gum surgeries, that kind of stuff. We do pathology surgeries. So that could be something simple, like a little clogged salivary gland on your lip that won't go away, a callus on your cheek where you bit yourself, or it could be something big like a cancer. We do trauma, so broken jaws, upper jaw fracture, nose fractures, cheek, forehead, anything on your face that can break, we're trained to fix. We also do cosmetic surgeries. I don't do those at all, but there's guys out there who limit their practice to cosmetics. So they're doing the facelifts and the brow lifts and the eye surgery and the nose and the ears and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we do reconstructive surgery, which has overlap in all those fields. But so after a trauma, if you need further reconstruction, we can do that. I'll do that. Also, people who just have a deformity. So, if their jaw is too big like this and you need to fix that, or if it's too small and you need to fix that, we do those kind of surgeries, can move the upper jaw around. And I mentioned doing some cranial surgery. So on the kids that'll have kind of a misshapen skull, you can take that off and reshape it and put it back on. And I don't know if you've ever been out at the store and you see like a little baby that's wearing a helmet, it kind of looks like a bicycle helmet. Mm-hmm. The point of that helmet is to squeeze the head in different ways and correct the shape. And if that won't work, or in some cases we know it's not going to work, then we go to surgery.
Wow.
So I think that's pretty much all the aspects of oral surgery. Oh, infection, I left that off. That's like 95% of what I do at the hospital, and it's 95% of my YouTube videos. So yeah, big infections, they're almost always from teeth, although occasionally someone will get like a zit that gets out of control or something. And so we treat lots of infections.
Well, leading into dental hygiene, is it the hygiene that impacts or causes infections, or?
Yeah, it definitely can. It's a big part of it. So the hygienists, obviously they work with keeping the mouth and the teeth clean. And what they're really trying to do is fight periodontal disease, or gum disease is what everybody calls it. And if that gum disease gets out of control, that can definitely cause serious infections. And technically, gum disease in itself is a mild, low-grade kind of chronic infection, but it can turn into one of these big swellings like you'll see. But a lot of the really big infections actually just come from a cavity in a tooth, a rotten tooth. So the bacteria are able to go through that cavity into the nerve inside the tooth, down into the bone, and then spread out into your face, neck, whatever. But the hygienists definitely have an important role in those soft tissue infections. And they're for most of us, they're kind of the first point of contact into the dental world. If you go to a dental office, one of the first people you're going to meet is the hygienist. And they're going to look in your mouth and they're going to check for the gum disease, make those little measurements when they're probing the gums and calling out numbers. What they're doing is checking to see if you have gum disease. Mm-hmm. And they're going to look at the teeth. And they're going to look at the gums and the tongue and stuff. And a lot of times the hygienist goes to the dentist and says, hey, there's a spot on the tongue that looks suspicious. There's a spot on the cheek that looks suspicious. Or, I think there might be a cavity somewhere in the mouth. Technically they're not allowed to diagnose stuff, even though, sometimes it's pretty obvious. But, they can't officially diagnose it. So they tell the dentist, and the dentist comes and looks and makes the final diagnosis.
So you see a lot of those cases where basically it's too late, and a lot could have been prevented earlier, right?
Yeah, yes. We fixed the problem definitively, but it's usually taking out the teeth or doing a gum surgery. And yeah, it's when you come to my office, we're kind of past the point of fixing stuff. So people will call and ask if we do fillings or it's mainly like fillings and root canals and stuff. And we always just tell people, we don't fix teeth. We remove teeth. We put in dental implants. But yeah, if you've come to me, we're past the fixing point.
I have a question, because October is also National Health Literacy Month. And I just wanted to know how many patients you encounter that truly are misinformed, or they are just lost about dental hygiene or anything to do with their knowledge on their teeth and what can happen, because I don't think people do know, wow, an abscess can lead to me getting reconstructive surgery or anything like the jaws and all of these kinds of things. So how do you address that in the clinic, and how do you deal with a lot of patients that have that problem?
Well, so in the clinic, it's kind of a one-off thing. And so each patient, you can talk to them about the problem and do some educational stuff. But it doesn't really spread the message. I will say on the YouTube videos, one of the most common comments that I get is like, wow, I didn't know that could happen from a tooth, or, oh, I better go get my tooth looked at now, because patients kind of have a nagging problem, a little something sore, something hurts, maybe it bleeds a little bit when you brush, but you kind of put it off, and we're busy. People are scared of the dentist. And then this ties in with with the Free Market Medical Association. Dentistry is expensive, and people have no idea what to expect. They just know it's going to be really expensive, and so they don't go until it's too late. and a lot of times patients will tell me, man, I've had bad teeth. I've had abscess teeth before, but I took antibiotics, it got better. Eventually I got it pulled. And then this one time they're in the ER meeting me because none of that stuff worked like it usually does. And they're all swollen up and we're going to go to the operating room for surgery. So it's a good point. And patients need to be aware that sure, your tooth may be fine. People have broken teeth all the time and they're fine, but it can also get really serious.
The other question I have is, how does that affect your marketing message or your delivery? What's a better way to phrase that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. How does knowing that people are not aware of all these things impact your marketing message? And let's talk about marketing. What do you do for marketing? I mean, you touched on YouTube, and I mentioned earlier you are one of probably few doctors that feel quite comfortable online and that are also quite technologically savvy.
Yeah, well, I love to hear myself talk, so it's great. So the YouTube channel is our biggest platform, like you and I were talking off camera. And that I don't remember exactly how I decided to do that. I just did it, and then kind of got a little better, got better equipment and better software and stuff. And it wasn't meant to necessarily be a marketing thing. I just liked doing it. I like to teach. I guess that would be the answer. I like to teach. For a few years of my career, I was a professor at the school here in town, and I've always enjoyed teaching. So then YouTube was a natural way to just show the surgery, talk about the surgery, teach people. And obviously, if it works as a marketing thing, I'm happy about that. But a lot of my viewers are international or from other states, and so it doesn't necessarily translate to patients. I think my most direct marketing effort has been on the radio. I advertise on one of the radio stations here in San Antonio, and because of that, then I get invited sometimes to be on the radio and talk about different things. Back in April and March, I guess, I talked about COVID several times, and so that's probably my biggest marketing push. I haven't done any mail outs. I'm not on television, so social media and the radio. But behind all of that is the Free Market Medical Association. Man, it was like 2016 maybe, and I was 17, something like that. I was listening to a podcast, and this guy in Canada was talking about having lymphoma and couldn't get attention in Canada at a reasonable time. And he said, so I went to this place in Oklahoma City, and I paid them a reasonable price, and they did my surgery, and I found out that I had lymphoma, and everything got taken care of. And I said, what? I got to hear more about this. So I looked it up. The Surgery Center of Oklahoma, who, the founders there are behind also starting the Free Market Medical Association. So that's my tie-in. But when I went to the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, to their website, you guys have seen it. There's a picture of a person and just kind of says, where do you need surgery? And you click on it, and then it gives you a price. And I thought, this is different, pretty crazy, but I kind of like it. And it just was in the back of my mind to try that in my field, because patients will call and say, hey, how much is it to take out a tooth? Well, the insurance code book has like 6 or 7 different codes for taking out a tooth, and you're telling the patient, well, we really have to see you first. You got to pay for a consult so we can tell you how much it's going to cost. And I just thought, there's a better way. So now patients call us and say, hey, how much is it to take out a tooth? We just give them a number. And so we've followed, I guess, with the Surgery Center of Oklahoma and the Free Market Medical Association, published our prices online and make it transparent. And as much as possible, I try to bundle everything together too. So you're not getting a 30 line item bill, this much and this much. Just, what do you need? Here's the price.
Yeah, that's interesting. We also see that in our line of work, where nowadays it's all about content. When we talk about marketing, it's about, and medical marketing in particular, it's about specific content. But then once you have the content, it needs to be distributed, needs to be created, edited, placed on the website or whatever platform it is. then helping people to distribute it. And we also started going down that route where we said, hey, let's look at whatever we think is a fair price for this outcome on a monthly basis. And then we work like that. And it's beautiful because it can be value and outcome based, and the conversation can be around, well, what do we need to do to make it happen? And in month number A, that means something different sometimes than month number B. And yeah, sometimes you work a little bit more hours, sometimes a little bit less, but the outcome is there, and that's what matters. And I think that's the same for you probably. At the end of the day, people want to get rid of that ache or whatever it may be, and you deliver that, and they can rely on the fact that you have given them a price and that's it, right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy, actually, because patients ask me, or other doctors ask me, how can you do that? What do you do with the hard ones and the easy cases and all that? Well, it just kind of averages out. Like you said, sometimes you spend more hours and sometimes you spend less. Yeah. But you can, and there's a little trial and error or whatever, but you can figure out a way to price it fairly and make the patients happy or make your customers happy. And so we do the same thing. And yeah, sometimes I take out a really hard set of wisdom teeth and I spend a lot of time in there and I think, yeah, I didn't really do great on that. But then there's other times where you win, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good message. And I like the way that you're structuring your business too. That's a good way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it really also requires both parties to understand each other and to say, hey, I'm willing to have a relationship that is grounded in trust, that you do your part and I do my part. And that has proven to be very effective and also very sustainable. I don't recall having lost any customers. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I'd rather grow slowly but steadily than just explode and gain all of those leads and customers and then lose them again because we can't deliver what we promised or the expectations are not aligned. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I think as a content specialist, that's one thing that really takes the pressure off of me, understanding that, okay, this is the arrangement in general that we have, but we're so flexible that we understand, look, if a client needs to have a brochure or a business card or a case study or something that's going to require more effort, more time, more research, it's very technical, you need to have different way that you go about it than a typical blog post that they may normally need. It's understood that they may have one less blog post in the month because you were tending to another need that was more urgent. Yeah. And it just creates a really dynamic relationship because both parties understand like how it works, how it operates, and there's no fixation on, well, we're gonna have to charge you more for this. It's like, no, well, we'll deliver this and maybe a little bit less on this, and next month we'll do, and it keeps you, just in a really good place. Everyone's happy.
Yeah. You guys know more about medical marketing than really I do. And I've always wondered how the average doctor can sort of market and compete, because in the insurance game, you're taking money off the table, which is a huge way that, businesses compete is on price. But if everyone kind of charges the same and you just got to look at a list of 30 Blue Cross doctors and figure out which one you're going to see, then people try to figure out, well, who's a good one. But that's always a hard question to answer. People ask me that, like, oh, who's a good nephrologist to see? I don't really know. I know who I like personally and who I see at the hospital and all that, but I don't know. I don't have a great way to compare their patient outcomes,
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have two types of medical customers: the ones that work under a form of free market idea, where we have we're specialists in a way of delivering healthcare that is called direct primary care, which is more like a membership with a clinic. But then there's also direct pay which is more what you are doing, I believe. And
Right.
So if we talk about these types of deliveries, then right now we have a huge educational job to do, because it just sounds too good to be true, because there are a lot of institutions and companies that make a lot of money that, quite frankly, don't want people to see that there's another way. So it is our job to educate, and that's one type of education for individuals. And then, of course, when it comes to helping these doctors target employers, larger groups, then it becomes very data driven. And that's really what we have focused a lot on finding how we can best show that. Now, talking about those other doctors that you mentioned, where it's really hard to say what's the difference and how to compare them, it comes back to understanding that people work with other people because they can relate to them and because they just trust them and like them in a way. And we can achieve that in marketing through storytelling. And I mean, that's what the big conglomerates, the big hospitals do. And that's what smaller companies can do as well. You create a story that is well crafted with all the skills and art set in film, writing, and imagery, and you just evoke emotions, and that's how you do it. There's no other way around. But we're really interested in, of course, the free market approach, because we see that there is a true solution for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, and it's beautiful to be part of it and to help educate and have an impact on the ecosystem.
And I think patients also see a sense of justice, because they are like, wow, this is so transparent. I can take this to the bank. Like, I can compare, or I can't compare, because there is no other person in Texas like you who has their oral surgeon prices listed. And that really is a way to connect as well. I think it's just showing people what they got, what they're getting, what they can expect, and they feel like, wow, I can get behind this.
Yeah, it's probably the best solution for patients, and honestly, it would fix a lot of the problems, whether you're on the hospital side or whatever. It is great, and I don't know any other oral surgeon in the country, and for sure in Texas, that does what I'm doing. And patients will ask me, what about a dentist? Do you know a dentist where they'll just tell me how much it's going to cost to get a filling or get a crown? And there is a place here in town that does crowns that way, but there's not a general dentist that I know of that just puts the fees up and people can see what it costs. And if you're a general dentist watching this, there's a market. There's definitely a market for that. But this is the free market, whether it's the direct primary care or the direct pay, is really a great way. I mean, just imagine, so my parents remember when I was a kid, you'd go to the pediatrician, you'd see the doctor, you'd write your check for however much, and then you'd send a claim off to insurance and you get your money back, whatever, a month or however long it takes later. And there's a little bit of that lag time there, but that used to be normal. And then just over my lifetime, we've seen a big change in healthcare where it's always got to find the guy that's in network with the insurance, and got to go to the in-network doctor, and don't pay up front. But it ends up costing more in the long run. I mean, so look at your insurance premiums. It would be great if we could get back to catastrophic insurance for car wrecks and cancers and stuff like that. That's maybe a few $100 a month, and then the rest you pay out of pocket. I mean, you guys, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are well aware of this, but health insurance should be like car insurance and homeowners insurance. You take care of the little stuff yourself. You pay for the tires on your car, but if there's a big disaster, then you've got insurance to step in, and consequently, the insurance is not nearly as expensive. So my practice, and I think a lot of direct pay, does well for people who have no insurance, because you get the price up front, you know what it is. And we're also, there's a lot of boutique cash pay doctors. That's not what I am, because at the boutique cash pay places, it's usually expensive. There's always a guy out there that'll put in your dental implant for $5,000, and maybe they got a great reputation, but that's insanity. We're not that. And we're also I'm not trying to be the cheapest person in town. I'm just trying to deliver services at a price that people can afford, that I'm happy with. Everyone wins, just like what you guys were saying.
Right.
So we help the people who don't have insurance because we have a good price and they know what they're getting into up front. But then for the people who have insurance and they're still willing to use us, they actually come out ahead in most cases. Just on Friday, I got a what we call an EOB from an insurance company that just spells out what they're going to pay. So I took out a person's wisdom teeth it's actually been like 6 weeks ago or so. Patient had insurance, so I took out the teeth for my usual $1,000. Well, the patient ended up paying, it was $150 or $200 out of pocket when it was all said and done, and insurance had kicked in. So they did have to wait a little while for the insurance to pay them back. But if they're willing to float that money for a little while, they'll come out ahead, come in here, even though I'm out of network with their insurance. And I think that's true for a lot of direct pay practices. And then you mentioned the direct primary care. Well, that's where my wife and I get our health care. We work with a local direct primary care doctor. We pay a membership fee, like you said, each month. And I'm spending money that I wouldn't have to spend if I used my insurance and went to an in-network doctor and such. But you know what? My doctor, the price is reasonable. I've got her cell phone number. I've got her email. She contacts me. We text. She knows what's going on with me. It's very easy to get an appointment. And it's minimal. It's $75 a month or $80 a month or something like that. You just can't beat it.
Yeah. Well, and you really mentioned something that to me is very important, which is you get to make an impact on the world at a fair rate, and that gives you a lot of satisfaction and a lot of fulfillment. And that is something that surprised me as a company owner. And I won't lie, at the beginning, I thought, wow, if you can start having people work with you, the big bucks will flow in and all of that will give you a lot of happiness. But then it happens, and I'm happy that I'm seeing, no, really what is beautiful is that you can provide an environment where people can make a living, and where you can support businesses that you want to support and that you want to see them flourish because they give value to the community. And that's really, really very important, because then you work with purpose, and work is no longer work. It's just you're on your mission, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's very true. I found that to be absolutely true. And when I was in dental school, we would all sit around and people would kind of fantasize about being the person that could get $5,000 for a crown. And, how do you get people to see the value in your services and all that? And in every town, there's one or two people like that, at least in the bigger cities, where you can get away with stuff like that. And there's an oral surgeon in Dallas that gets like $50,000 to do jaw surgery, but there's one in the whole country, So I agree with you, Shanker. I like that we're offering affordable services. I'm happy. And I may never be the $1 million oral surgeon that all of us, fantasize about, but that's fine. I live just fine. I'm happy with what's going on. My staff are very happy, and the patients are happy.
Right. Yeah, and let's not paint the wrong picture. I'm sure you have everything you need and more. You have put in a lot of hard work into your career, and you deserve fair compensation for that. And it works. You make what you need, and we have visited your practice, and everything looks top of the line. And I can see that there were enough investments made. And the same goes for us, and a lot of doctors that chose the route of the free market And there are more and more that think about it. And even nowadays, young doctors out of residency who start out like that, they need to know that it's possible. And they need to be given the skills to master it, because you are, in fact, also a business owner now, no longer an employee. And I'm interested in, did you have to go through a transition, or were you immediately a business owner in your career?
No, I worked for a few different companies, and then I taught for a couple of years, and then took the step out to be a business owner. And you're right, there's a lot to learn, and I'm still learning and still working on that stuff, but I enjoy it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and to your point, you're right. I don't want to make it sound like if you go this route that you're committing to, being a pauper. It's not like you're joining a convent or something. If my practice is still growing, we're coming up on 2 years old. If my schedule was full, I would be doing fantastic. And I'm not saying I'm doing bad, but just the point is, even with our business model, you can do just fine, And yeah, you mentioned earlier, and I forgot to say something, the idea that it's too good to be true. So when we first opened, patients would drive by our practice to just look at it, because they thought it was going to be like in a van down by the river. Like, how can this guy only charge $300? And so people would actually drive by the day before, then they'd come in and they go, yeah, we checked it out, it looks good. And that's why I put on the line, I would put photos of the office, and I would do a video tour. And yes, it really is new, and it really is clean.
Not transplanting your livers and organs and selling your liver.
Yeah. We're not gonna have the black market set up over here.
Right.
And the other thing was we use normal name brand supplies. Like you can get sort of knockoff and cheaper stuff. I'm not doing that. I'm using big brand name equipment, and it's we can afford it, and it can be done, and it works fine.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're definitely going to add references to your online presences to the description of this video, and also it goes out in several ways. But I want to mention your website, because I often use it to show people, here, you go there, you click services, and you get all the prices. You just get it. And there's a long list of it. And so if people navigate to rivercityoms.com, and again, we'll have links, they will see that. And I also encourage we have doctors in our mailing list. I encourage them to see that, because if they think about joining that movement, there's plenty of pie to share. There's other people who can do that, other doctors who can do that as well if they wish to.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice being the only one, but I'm not going to be the only one forever, and I know that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm even looking at how can I make the fee scheduler simpler? How can I bundle stuff, like I said, or just, I don't know. Because my initial goal was just be as transparent as possible, put all the fees up there. And I still want to do that. I'm not saying I don't, but just to make it, more, I don't know, user friendly. And a lot of patients don't really know what the name of the thing is that they need, beyond the basics. Like, I need a tooth out, or I need a dental implant. Some of the other stuff they look at it and go, what is that? I don't even know what that means. And I try to have a description on there and stuff, but yeah, I always talk about this model like going to buy a car, so again, you guys know this, but you go buy a car, everybody hates it. I think that's probably worldwide. Everybody hates it. You walk up and you have no idea what the actual price is. And did you get the best deal, or did the guy that was right ahead of you get the best deal, and whatever. Well, in a way, when I put my fees on the website, it holds me accountable, because I can't change them, and the patients know, like, they can see it and they know if I changed it. And the patients are reassured because they know what it is going to, coming in. We had, as I was talking about bundling early on, we had to make a decision. We advertised that we would take out 4 wisdom teeth for $1,000 with IV. It's all inclusive. And that was a deal if you had 4 impacted wisdom teeth, meaning like under the gums or under the bone, where they had to really be cut out. But some people have maybe 1 that's kind of impacted or 2 that's impacted, but then maybe 2 are out. Well, if you look at my website and you start doing the math, that comes out to be less than $1,000, depending on the situation. And so my staff would come to me and say, well, what are we going to do? And we just decided, I said, we're going to always err in the patient's favor. So if it's 4 impacted wisdom teeth, it's $1,000 and it's a deal for them. But if they have 3 that are erupted and 1's impacted, we're not going to jack it up to $1,000 when it would have been less if we didn't call it wisdom teeth, But putting the fees up just keeps everybody honest, and that you got the best possible deal.
Mm. Do you get a lot of referrals? I imagine you do. Yeah,
I do.
From past customers, I mean.
Yes. Yeah. So I was going to say probably about half of my business is referrals from other doctors, but the other half are just people who found us either from word of mouth, like you're talking about, or the radio ads or the internet or what have you. It's always a little hard to pinpoint that because we ask every patient on the paperwork, how'd you hear about us? But sometimes the answer is a little vague, and I don't push it very hard, to try to pinpoint that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for us as marketers, we need to always measure which channel works best. And it is clear that sometimes it's not even conscious to the person, because it starts somewhere. Sometimes someone told them, look at the Facebook page, look at the website, and they forget that someone told them.
Right.
Sometimes they find it through Facebook, and then they call a number, and then they hear about it, and then you ask them, and then they say, well, it was your sales rep. So, but
they play a game on Facebook that takes them to the website. So then what do they?
In marketing, we talk about the 7 touch points. On average, there's research that shows, people need to hear or read or see your brand 7 times until they're ready to make a decision. And that's true. And I see it happening all the times with myself, where you first see something on TV, then you do some research on the website, modern technology pixels you or tags you, and all of a sudden everywhere you see it on Facebook, on Google, and we all know there's kind of
that before you know it, you walk out with a sleep number.
Yeah.
It's funny, I have a sleep number.
Yeah, that happened. How many years did they have to drizzle touch points on you until you finally made it happen last week?
I don't know. How many times did I have to say it to you before it finally happened last week?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, we were trying recently, last month, to figure out what's the return on investment for the radio ads, because they're they're fairly expensive. I mean, you can definitely afford it if you want to do it, but it's an investment. And it's real easy when the patient just writes down, I heard you on the radio. But then what about the people, like you said, that maybe they did hear a radio commercial and then maybe a friend said something, and whatever. It's a little harder to nail it. Yeah, you're right. And it's funny because I listen to the station I'm on, and so when I'm thinking about a service I need, it's always the commercials I've heard. Even though I've never paid a lot of attention, I'll be like, oh, I know a plumber. I've heard their ad.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one way you could, there's 2 ways that you can do. The one way is to use a tracking number that is only for a phone number that is only for your radio ad, and it just directs calls to your main number, and that gives you a very accurate reading. The other one is if you have a coupon that you only let people know on the radio, and you don't even have to give a discount, but maybe a free toothbrush or something, right? So people enter the coupon or give you the coupon when they come to you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, those tracking numbers, they are very valuable. There's dynamic phone numbers that you can insert a code into the website where based on the source, the original source, it shows a different number. And that way you can say, okay, this was traffic from Facebook, this was traffic from YouTube, this was traffic from Google, this was a direct traffic. And so we call those dynamic numbers. And the other one are static numbers, where, for example, if you were to do an expensive road sign or radio ad, you can just pick one number for that, and there's only one way people can know of that number.
Programmer at heart right here.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting.
Code and all of that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I hadn't thought about that, because we just make a big deal about giving our phone number over and over again everywhere, and I never thought about the tracking benefits of a different number.
Yeah,
I might get confused when talking.
You're kind of married for life to these numbers, but they're not expensive. They're like I think it's subscribing to such a service starts around $49 a month, and then each additional number is $1.50, or did I say that right?
$1.50 or $1.50.
Sometimes I have European ways of saying things, and she's like
1.5.
1.5. But yeah, and we do offer that service, by the way. So for people listening, that's not a complicated thing to set up. Yeah.
You mentioned the roadside, like the billboards. I've thought about doing that, because in my business is very problem driven. My tooth hurts, I need it fixed.
Yeah.
And I got to capture it like when the iron is hot. Strike when the iron's hot, right? And so I'm not looking to build a long-term relationship and entice people to for me to be their dentist. They just want to come see me, get it fixed, and be done.
True. We'll see you next week.
Right. Yeah. So I've really thought about putting up some billboards, actually, in some of the smaller towns. Maybe I'm thinking wrong, but I just figure in some of the smaller towns, people might be even more price conscious and maybe a little less likely to have insurance, because maybe there's not a big industry there that gives them insurance. So I've thought about that.
No. Well, Dr. Haverkorn, we have a question for you here. This is one of the very first times where we are live and have a question. So Joshua Payne says, "Good evening, Dr. Haverkorn. I have to say you have a great smile." There you go. "You're so handsome when you smile. Do you know this person, Dr. Haverkorn?"
Yeah.
All right. You don't have to go into what, but he has a question. What has been the best part of having your own practice, and what has been the most challenging part?
Ooh, good question, Joshua.
Well, the best part is that you're building it, and it's your baby, and you're watching it grow and stuff. But when I say that, I think in terms of my team, though, I've had the same employees since. I mean, we're not that old, but I've had the same employees since we opened. We recently hired a new person, but all of us, I think, feel invested in this thing. My employees caught the vision when I explained it to them. They came with me to start this place, and it's really fun just to watch it grow. I mean, you guys probably know that. I'm trying to think if there's a better answer than that. But obviously there's the stuff of just freedom to kind of do what you want to do and set it up the way you want it. But to me, it's a challenge, and just watching it grow is a lot of fun, and thinking about how to make it better. And I like the human resources stuff to a point. I mean, I don't want to be an HR manager, but I like dealing with the employees, and I like trying to make them happy and encourage them and stuff. And
like somebody I know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very serendipitous here, this conversation, because it's a recurring theme in our business as well. Just creating that space where people are committed to the cause, and you have this contract, this behavioral contract, where everybody puts in what they expect from each other, and doing that on a basis where there's respect, and there's still a good work-life balance, and there's all the needs met. that is not easy to achieve. And you can approach this many different ways. You can be draconian and you can say, I'm the boss and everything goes my way or no other way, or you can be open to doing it together. So we know how he does it.
My employees gave me this, just for the record.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think it was an indictment.
But, yeah, it's definitely a beautiful challenge, I will say. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, you can be draconian, or you can try to be, I don't know, more inclusive. I'm not. We're not Google, where you can come in with your torn up jeans or whatever you want. We have some rules and stuff, but I try to just treat the employees like people and like family. And my wife knows them, and I know their spouses, and it's nice. The other question was, what's the worst thing? And I mean, the first thing that comes off the top of my head is like, you're paid last, right? So when you're employed, when you're employed, you know what you're going to make, and you get and when payday is and all that. And when you go work for yourself, then you're paid last after everything else is paid to keep the place open. That's kind of a pat answer. Sometimes I miss having other doctors around because I'm in solo practice. If it got a little bigger, I would probably bring in more doctors, but it's always fun just to sit and talk to another doctor about a case and just pick their brain and what do you think and how would you do this? And, and I still have friends where I do that, but I used to work with other guys side by side, So I guess that answers the question.
Yeah. So I'm interested. I see a lot of your content online is revolving around your ranch or your cattle that you have, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been trying to get us to your ranch for at least the past 6 months.
Well, gosh, like 3 years ago, I guess my wife and I were laying in bed, and she's looking at her phone, and she says, "Hey, look at this house for sale." And I'm like, "You're crazy. We have a great house. We like where we live." And then she showed it to me, and it looked nice. It was not far from where we already were living, and it was a ranch. It was 15 acres, so it's not a huge ranch, but so we went from not house shopping to we're going to buy a house. And she grew up with cattle. I did not. I grew up just in a mid-sized city in Texas, in Longview, in Northeast Texas. Lived in a neighborhood, and that was it. We didn't have a ranch, but she grew up with cattle and knew something about it. And her parents live here and are able to help. And so we got the place, and it had an agricultural exemption on it. It was already kind of like zoned for ag, and so we wanted to maintain that. So then we bought cattle, and of course I knew nothing about that. She told me we want this breed. There's this one breed of cow that she had seen at Texas A&M when she was a student and liked it, and so that's what we got into. They're the belted Galloways, the Oreo cows, as everybody calls them, because they're a black cow with just a white band around their belly. It's like an Oreo, and they don't have horns. None of them have horns. And so we're up to 11 or 12 right now. 5 of them are calves, and my daughters will show those at livestock shows. And then when the calves get a little bit older, we'll end up selling them. We can't keep growing our herd. We don't have enough space. And we try to sell, and we have so far just sold our cattle to people who want to start their own herd or add to their herd. So that we haven't sold at a sale barn for meat or anything. I'm not above that, but I'm trying. My kids are trying to not do that.
Well, I understand. I can relate to that. I mean, it's
with all our cattle in our ranch.
No, but being a vegan, I can relate to that. Well, I mean, it is a lot of work, right? I mean, because I remember as a kid, I lived in a farmer's village, and they were often taking care of me when my mom was at work. And I just remember they don't have any time off. They just very often the animals need you in the middle of the night when things happen, and yeah, they don't say, well, it's Sunday, I don't need to be fed, you know?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is you just don't get a day off. If you're gonna go out of town, you got to find somebody that's going to help, you know, at least check on the animals, if not feed the animals. But yeah, you know, we're a little smaller operation, so it's not quite as all consuming as maybe a bigger place. But yeah, every day there's stuff to do, and then you know, there's maintenance too, just maintaining the fences or our cows just break stuff, man. They just rub on something and break it, and then you got to go fix it. And try to avoid, you know, we try to set it up where they can't get to things. But I've got photos online of them getting into the swimming pool. You know, if they can find a way, if they can find a way, they'll do stuff like that. And we have chickens and pigs, but I have I've got 5 daughters, and so they're at the age now where they can do a lot of that. And my wife helps, and my in-laws help, because kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, just when you open your own business, I spend a lot of time at the business. And you and I off the air had talked about, you know, delegating things, and I'm trying to do that more and more, and you know, maybe hire soon, hopefully, some more people to help that. But yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to my family, because they do probably the lion's share of that stuff. And I just enjoyed the benefits.
Awesome.
Well, it must be beautiful for kids to grow up like that.
Yeah, that's what makes it worth it. You know, financially, it's not a win. I mean, it's not a big enough operation. We're not making money on the animals, but I think that's the win. Is the kids are going to remember growing up on a ranch and you know, taking care of animals, and and my in-laws live there with us, and so, you know, it's kind of this little family commune that my kids get to grow up in.
Memories, peace, love, that's all currency. There's people who are spending their money to get that, and you don't have to. And that's in the practice and on your ranch too. So, I mean, work-life balance is such a huge, important part of what you do. And I love direct everything, because to me, that's what it does. It gives you back that peace. You know, you don't have to worry about.
And to some extent, your business also enables you to have that flexibility, right? Because when you are, when someone else dictates your schedule, that's not always possible to have these things in your life.
Literally, people would pay to get that. So.
No, it's definitely a plus. My previous employer was great too. They would give me a lot of flexibility, but yeah, you're right. That is a big plus for running your own business. You know, if the kids have something going on at school, I can mark it off and I can be there.
Well, wrapping up, I always like to know, where do you see yourself in 5 years, Dr. Haverkorn?
Well, same location. We've got room to grow here. When I opened this place, I thought I would be taking out a lot more teeth, doing a lot more extractions. Just people would call me with bad teeth. But what has really taken off has been the dental implants, just because our prices are very competitive locally, and even, you know, further out, statewide, nationally. So I'm giving a lot of thought now to growing that implant business. I like doing a lot of different aspects of oral surgery. I don't want to be only an implant guy, but I think that's going to be part of it. And then if this model continues to do well, I've thought about going to other cities with the same model. That becomes a problem, because a lot of the practice is driven by the personality of the doctor that's there. And can you reproduce the same thing if you're not there? I don't know. But,
well, I think it brings to my mind our guest we had, was it this week or the week before? Dr. Thomas.
Last week, yes.
Dr. Paul Thomas. Yeah, he does DPC out of Detroit, and it sounds like he has 2 or 3 doctors that work for him.
2, and he's hiring 1 more.
Yeah, under the DPC model, because he says specifically more doctors are looking for that type of delivery where you can actually take time to think about your patient and help them. And not everybody is cut out to be a businessman. I mean, let's be honest. It comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of things that sometimes you either have or you don't. And in that way, you can create I'm sure you can create a space for other oral surgeons who want to do the work right, but don't want to be a business owner. You know, it's just about finding that person.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. I mean, in San Antonio, with the military, we have retiring oral surgeons who, they've already had a military career. They've got their retirement benefit. And a lot of those folks are looking for exactly that kind of job where they can continue to work because they're young, but they're past the point of wanting to jump into opening a business. So, I've thought about that.
Well, that is exciting for everyone, really. I have to tell you, this was one of the best lives we've had so far, because very often, and we've started this is version number 4 or 5, right? And of course, we're getting less stressed when we do it, but this was really just a very nice conversation to have with you, and we really appreciate your friendship and your connection through the Free Market Medical Association. And I mean, we know there's more in store for us here, and we wish you continued success, and keep in touch, definitely.
And can't wait to see you at your ranch whenever that happens.
Yes. Thank you for all that you guys are doing locally, just to spread the message about this model, and for your leadership in the Free Market Medical Association. More people need to hear about it. San Antonio and Texas needs to know that there are alternatives that are affordable. So, but again, just thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right. Well, it's that time where most people like to wrap up their Saturday and do something a bit more relaxing. Dr. Haverkorn, thank you. And we'll see each other again, probably next time in person.
Hopefully. Yes.
Yeah. And I'll get you guys out to the ranch.
Yes.
Bye.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.